Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 11th of May now, it's almost 12:30, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today in which I will share all the latest news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be on my Patreon a little bit later in the afternoon, and if I may, I will remind you that yesterday's second update was not just for Patreon only, but it was on my main channel on YouTube also. So I hope if you have time, you will check that video and then share your opinion on any topic that you will find interesting. In yesterday's second update, I also share video footage that me and my family members made in Moscow during the celebration of Victory Days. So you may find that also interesting. That's been said. Let's talk about news now, and I will start with Ukrainian special military operation. And to be honest, this morning, first what I did when I came to notebook was that I started checking media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms to see any information about this confrontation between head of PMC Wagner, Evgeny Prigozhin, and leadership of Russian Defense Ministry. And fortunately, I did not find any new statements from anyone side, which gives hope that maybe this confrontation between the sides have been moved from public domain, because it was, in my opinion, it was probably demoralizing for public to see that leadership of one of the most capable and successful units, I'm talking about PMC Wagner, and leadership of Russian Defense Ministry was arguing with each other publicly. I mean, it's never good to see anything like that, isn't it? And at least for now, we don't have any new statements from Prigozhin. So I hope all the issues that there was between the sides were resolved. So that's been said. Let's talk about some other news. And RIA Novosti is reporting that according to PMC Wagner fighters in Bakhmut, it's only a little bit more than 700 meters left to move forward, and the entire Bakhmut, entire Artyomovsk will be under full Russian control. This story, of course, is everyone probably are tired by this point with this unending story of Bakhmut, but still this is one of the main hot points on the front line. And if we take a look on this map, these white dots are approximate contact of line between the sides, and according to this map, Russian side did manage to enter these few blocks of high-rise buildings that's still under control of Zelensky's terrorist regime. And if that's the case, if this so-called citadel is failing, then it's truly like few days left, and entire Bakhmut will be under full Russian control. But yet again, it's hard to tell because no one probably anticipated that this battle will continue for so long. Even though everyone do understands that this battle has been won by Russian side. It's only like 3% left, 3 to 5% left under control of Zelensky's regime, and this formalization of this victory is have to be done. So yes, that's when it comes to Bakhmut. Let me continue now. And this is TASS News Agency's report. And by the way, what is interesting, Of course, you know that Prigozhin did said that there were some problems on the flanks of PMC Wagner units where Russian armed forces were controlling territory. And it seems like Zelensky's regime did had some success on the flanks, on the southern part. And this information was confirmed by many sources, not on official level, but many Telegram channels, including Russian Telegram channels, did confirm this information. But yet again, according to Prigozhin himself and fighters of PMC, they did manage to stop advances of Zelensky's regime. So at least for now, it seems like flanks of main forces of PMC Wagner are secure and they are continuing their offensive operations in the city. And hopefully they will manage to establish full control over this town in coming days. So let's continue now, and this is TASS News Agency's report about Zelensky's interview with the British propaganda outlet BBC. And in this interview, Zelensky stated that Ukraine needs some more time to conduct this anticipated by many counteroffensive, large-scale counteroffensive, and he was asking, you guessed, for what? Of course, he was still asking for more money and for more weapons, and according to him, Ukrainian side is waiting for additional deliveries of military equipment to be 100% ready to conduct this large-scale counteroffensive. You know my take on this topic, man. Zelensky is a war criminal and terrorist, and he should be, of course, end up in court and be sent to prison for life. That's for sure. But when it comes to his statements and this story of Ukrainian counteroffensive, of course, there will be no large-scale Ukrainian counteroffensive. Nowhere. Not in this area here between this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia, and nowhere else. They don't really have forces to conduct large-scale offensive operations, but it seems like now that even local-scale offensive operations is under question, because probably Russian strikes, recent Russian drone and missile strikes were so effective that now these criminals in Kiev are asking for more time to conduct even local-scale offensive operations. So as I said, only way Zelensky's regime will somehow achieve any success on the front line is if Moscow will, for some strange reason, give orders to Russian forces to retreat or regroup. And if this will not happen, if Russian forces will have an order to stay and fight, then Zelensky's regime has zero chance to achieve any success anywhere, especially in the direction of this land bridge. They can try, and they will probably will be forced to try by Washington and London, because they are, openly demanding now that counteroffensive should be conducted. But yet again, we are probably seeing beginning of the end of Ukrainian armed forces as an entity, because if counteroffensive will begin local scale, or call it whatever you want, but if they will try to attack Russian side, they will be decimated. But if they did not, then even that will influence heavily on morale of Ukrainian armed forces, and in any ways Ukrainian units on the front line will start to crumble, and eventually it will be Russian turn. One way or another, it will be Russian turn to conduct offensive operations. And in my opinion, I still think that Russia will conduct decisive actions in the winter, in the winter, and this period from now to winter will be used to prepare decisive offensive operations. And but who knows, man? If Zelensky's regime or if Ukrainian armed forces will collapse before Russian side will conduct decisive operations, then statements of later statements from Kissinger may come to play, and Washington and London may be forced to give a green light to Zelensky or whoever will be in the power for that moment in Kiev to start peaceful negotiations with Moscow on the Russian terms. So, I was always critical about possibility that Zelensky's regime will conduct large-scale counteroffensive, but now there are some indicators to assume that even local-scale counteroffensives will be difficult to conduct for Zelensky's regime. And by the way, we should remember that lately, last few days, rumors are circulating in internet that during one of the Russian missile strikes, military leadership of Ukrainian armed forces were killed, including head of general staff Zaluzhny and the head of ground forces Syrsky. And even though deputy of Ukraine's defense minister, this Anna Malyar or whatever her name is, come out yesterday and said that Zaluzhny, rumors about death of Zaluzhny or Syrsky is not true, and they are not killed and not wounded, but no one did see these people in public for a while, and I did spoke about it in my yesterday's second update. And not just that, but if you remember, in my first update yesterday, I did share with you information that Zaluzhny did not participate in a meeting of heads of general staffs of NATO member states. So something is happening, and in coming days we will probably learn some more. If Ukraine lost its leadership, military leadership, then they are in even bigger trouble that I was anticipating. So we may not see even local scale offensive operations from Zelensky's terrorist regime. Let me continue now, and the next news that I like to share with you is about, yet again, this so-called counteroffensive, and Bloomberg is reporting that Western states, NATO member states mainly, did deliver to Ukraine about 200 tanks, majority of them are Western made, and about 300 armored personnel carriers, especially to conduct this announced counteroffensive. And according to Bloomberg, I don't know from where these numbers are coming from, but according to Bloomberg, Ukraine has about 700,000 military personnel now, which is false, of course. All Zelensky's regime has is about 300,000 to 400,000 soldiers, and vast majority of them are forcefully mobilized and not really are capable to do much. And when it comes to battle-ready units, more or less battle-ready units, Zelensky may have about 100,000 of those that has at least any experience, and only 50 to 70, 80,000 reserve, and that's it. And we are talking about entire front line. These units, these forces are all the way located all the way on the front line, and also in the northern part of Ukraine, in border regions with Belarus, and they cannot be removed from there. So yes, as you can see, more and more publications are coming out in the West. Some are basically almost openly demanding a counteroffensive. Some are preparing ground for inevitable defeat of Zelensky's regime. So basically, as I understand, because all these media outlets, these propaganda outlets, are controlled by Western elites, I think we are seeing, as I said many times before, active preparation of mindset of Western public, and we are seeing active participation of Western elites in damage control to make sure that after fail of Zelensky's regime, there will be not that much pressure on the Western elites, because after all, we all understand that public in West may don't really care about Ukraine. Majority of, let's say, US citizens probably won't be able to find Ukraine on the map. So it's understandable that they don't care about Ukraine. But probably they do care about hundreds of billions of their dollars, taxpayers' dollars, that were stolen from them under this agenda of helping Ukraine. So that's why I think Western elites are entering hot waters now, and this kind of publications will increase. Will increase because it's obvious that Biden administration and administrations in Europe don't really want some pressure to end up under pressure of society and to answer any questions, really. Let me continue now, and yet again we have a statement from one of the Ukrainian official, Danilov. He's the head of SMBO. What the heck is this? I mean, let me translate. Let me translate this just a second. And the head of national security of the Defense Council, Danilov, announced attempts to persuade Kiev to negotiate with Moscow on the Russian terms. Well, as you can see, Western elites are not just demanding offensive operations, but if there will be no offensive, or if that offensive will fail, which will definitely happen, Zelensky's regime has no chance, then we already are seeing statements from high-ranking officials of Zelensky's terrorist regime that West is already preparing ground to demand from them beginning of the negotiations with Russia on Russian terms. And eventually we all know that this conflict will end on Russian terms. There is no doubt about it. This conflict will end on Russian terms, and Russia already defeated Western elites in this battle. But yet again, to formalize all this stuff, it will take some time, and unfortunately, this formalization process of Russian victory over this criminal Western elites will be devastating for Ukraine, because for this time conflict in Ukraine will continue. Next news is about statement that Peskov made, press spokesman of Russian president, and according to him, Ukraine is, as a fact, state sponsor of terrorism. And yes, I mean, who can argue with this? It's just obvious for everyone that Ukraine are indeed state sponsor of terrorism, but not just sponsor. Ukraine itself is a terrorist state, because Zelensky, this war criminal Budanov, Zaluzhny, and the rest of them, they are openly conducting terror strikes. And they are officials, Ukrainian officials. They are not some terrorist group somewhere in the hiding. No, they are officials, Ukrainian officials, and they are openly saying that they are conducting terror strikes on Russian soil. That's what Budanov did, for example, just a few days ago during his interview with Yahoo News, We all probably remember that when he said that they were killing Russians and they will continue to kill Russians everywhere in this world. And he was answering with this kind of statement on the question of involvement of Budanov and Ukraine's military intelligence in terror attack against which killed Daria Dugina, Russian public figure. So Peskov is definitely right, but I will make even stronger statement on his praise. I will say that Ukraine itself is not just failed state, but a terrorist state, which is true. And that's why, by the way, lately I do think that maybe in sometime in the future we will see change of status of special military operation, and maybe new status will be anti-terrorist operation, and this way Russian side will receive much more opportunities to conduct to use all means necessary to deal with those terrorists that are running Ukraine. So let's wait and see, but I think it's truly time to change status of special military operation, because it's anti-terrorist operation in reality, because Russia is dealing with terrorists. Ukrainian armed forces, they may be called armed forces, but they are terrorist organization. SBU, Ukraine's secret service, is a terrorist organization. Ukraine's military intelligence is terrorist organizations, and heads of these terrorist groups, they are openly confirming this, for God's sake. And Zelensky itself, formally, he is a main terrorist in Ukraine because he is a leader of those terrorists. So I don't see a reason why Russia should not change status of special military operation and begin anti-terrorist operation and use all means necessary to neutralize those terrorists. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report, according to which Georgian officials, and in this case we are talking about Irakli Kobakhidze, one of the leaders of a ruling party in Georgia, Georgian Dream, said during the televised interview with the TV company Medi that Russia's decision to change its policy towards Georgia and not require visas anymore for Georgian citizens and to reopen direct flights between the countries. This decision mainly was based on Georgia's politics, friendly politics or neutral politics, and on the fact that Georgia did not impose on Russia any sanctions despite some pressure from the West. And to be honest, Kobakhidze is absolutely right. Current Georgian government did act according to Georgia's best interests. They did not impose any sanctions on Russia, and it was absolutely right step. Absolutely right step. And yes, Moscow did see it, and now we have an opportunity to bring two countries even closer, and societies of two countries, because free travel will definitely give more chances for public in Georgia and Russia to get know each other better and to get know each other's culture better and just to establish friendly relationships. And when it comes, I did spoke about it in my second update yesterday, but I will, if I may repeat myself on one topic, that I believe there is the way to improve relationships even further between Georgia and Russia. And in my opinion, this is start of negotiation between leadership of Georgia, South Ossetia, and Abkhazia. And as you know, and let me use map to explain better myself. So this is Georgia, by the way. When Soviet Union collapsed, entire this territory was Georgia. Then internal conflict erupted in South Ossetia, here in this region, and a little bit later in the Abkhazia. And for decades, these conflicts were destroying lives of people in Georgia, in South Ossetia, in Abkhazia, and not giving opportunity to develop economy and to just live in peace and stability. And unfortunately, in 2008, puppet of U.S. Secret Services, former Georgian President Saakashvili, under orders of Washington, did sacrifice Georgia and reignite civil war in South Ossetia, and provoked, by attacking Russian peacekeepers, provoked military intervention of Russia. And as a result, Moscow did recognize independence of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. And of course, right now, Moscow cannot recall its recognition of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. But if leaders of Georgia, South Ossetia, and Abkhazia will start negotiation about creation of confederation, and if sides will achieve agreement to create confederation and impose moratory on leaving confederation for 15 plus 10 years, I'm quite sure Moscow won't be against this, because there will be no need to recall any recognition, because if South Ossetia and Abkhazia will decide to create new state together with Georgia, confederative state, then Moscow will just recognize this new confederative state. And that way, issues between most of the issues between Russia and Georgia will be resolved. And not just that, but also will be resolved issues between Georgia, South Ossetia, and Abkhazia, because I'm strong believer in idea of confederation. I was always strong believer of peaceful negotiations. And I think if sides will come to this idea, after 25 years of peaceful life together and prosperity and economical development, I'm absolutely sure that no one side after 25 years will have any desire to leave confederation. So, I was trying to popularize idea of confederation when I was living in Georgia and when I was active journalist in Georgia, because as I said, I'm strong believer that this conflict between Georgia, South Ossetia, and Abkhazia should be resolved peacefully, and confederation, in my reading of big picture, is the right way to go. It may not be easy to receive. I mean, it will take some time to make sure that societies will receive this idea well, and before societies will support this idea. But sides should work. Leaders of both three sides should work with societies to make sure that they are explaining to them well enough so that people will understood that this is the right way to go. So yes, that's in my opinion, that's a way which will allow Moscow and Tbilisi, capital of Georgia, to deal with most of the issues between the sides. Not all the issues, but most of the issues. And in that case, these two countries may reach truly friendly relationships. So I hope one day it will happen. So let me continue now, and this is RT News. RT's news, according to which Ankara will postpone its $600 million payment in energy bills to Moscow until next year under New Deal. So yes, as you can see, Moscow is trying to help out Turkey in these difficult times, because, as you know, Turkish economy is a little bit struggling last quite a few years, and if Moscow agreed to postpone this $600 million payment, then that's a quite serious help to to Ankara, really. And this is once again highlights current level of relationships between Moscow and Ankara, between Russia and Turkey, which is great. I mean, Western elites may don't like it, but at least for now, these two countries are on friendly terms. And if Erdogan will remain in power after upcoming presidential election in Turkey, then I believe Turkey will play even. Turkey will become even closer to Russia and even closer to BRICS nations. And one day, Ankara may even become part of, or Turkey may even become part of BRICS, which be, I believe, great for Turkey and for BRICS. Because as you know, BRICS is becoming more and more popular all around the world, and many countries want to become part of BRICS. And the BRICS member states can play a crucial role to stabilize economies of candidate countries like Argentina, like Turkey, for example, if they will want to become part of BRICS, and they won't, as I know, if I'm not mistaken. And after that, after those countries will reach all the necessary levels of integration, then they become probably part of BRICS, and it will be great for entire world, really, because right now we are seeing establishments of some alternative international institutions that are not controlled by the Western elites, and this process will continue for sure. And as I said, man, if Western elites, there will be no changes in Western elites, and if Western societies do nothing, majority of Western societies do nothing to somehow influence process of formation of elites in the West, and if same crazy people will stay in ruling positions there, then Western states will eventually find themselves isolated from rest of the world. And this movement of distancing between Western states and the rest of the world is obvious right now already. So this is it for now anyway. I hope you will find this update interesting, and if so, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, share links to my videos with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, or any other platform that you are active on. And if you think this channel is interesting and deserves to exist, then please consider to support with small donations through PayPal, Buy Me Coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You will see links on this video in the description box. So yes, second update will be a little bit late on my Patreon. This is it for now. Have a nice day and take care.